The regular meeting of the Oakley Planning Commission is called to order. We'll start with roll call. Commissioner Price.
Here.
Commissioner Krieg. I am Vice Chair Verduzco present. Chair Chuco and Commissioner Ramirez are absent tonight. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Next, we'll move to public comments. At this time, public comments will be heard for items not on the agenda. I do not have any public comments submitted. To submit a public comment, please complete a speaker card located in the lobby and submit it to the Deputy City Clerk. The time limit to speak is 3 minutes. The time limit is monitored by the timer located at the front of the chair's seat. When 1 minute remains on the timer, it will beep once. The light will turn yellow as a reminder to complete comments before your time expires. Now we move on to consent calendar. Item 3.1, approve minutes from the regular Planning Commission meeting held June 4th, 2024. Is there any discussion, or would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move approval. Second.
I have a first and a second, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the consent calendar from last month's meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. So next we move on to item number 4, public hearings. Oakley Shops at Laurel Fields tentative parcel map, conditional use permit variance and design review. Request for approval of tentative parcel map to create 2 parcels, a conditional use permit for 3 drive-through services, 1 gasoline service station, a variance for an additional 5 feet of height on the grocery store entry tower, and design review for development of the 81,728 square foot shopping center. Community Development Director, Mr. Canstrillo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair, and good evening to other members of the Planning Commission and to those in the audience. I'll be giving the presentation for tonight just to let the Commission know we do have our CEQA consultant from Rainey Planning and Management, Rod Stinson, in the audience as well. This project is located on the northeast corner of Laurel Road and O'Hara Avenue, adjacent to the Laurel Ball Fields, the vineyard to the south, Laurel Plaza across O'Hara Avenue to the west, and it abuts existing residential that exists to the north. There's 3 requested entitlements before the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is the final decision-making body on all, 4 entitlement requests, and the Planning Commission is the final decision-making body on all 4 of these requests. The first is for a tentative parcel map. The applicant is requesting to subdivide the 8.77 acre piece of land, which consists of 1 parcel, into 2 parcels. And those 2 parcels would contain a majority of the shopping center, and then on the corner of the intersection, a gas station and convenience store on a separate parcel. There's also a request for approval of a conditional use permit, which would cover 3 drive-through restaurants and services, and that is the definition and the name of that use in our zoning code, all located on parcel 1 or the larger parcel, and the operation of the gasoline service station located on the corner parcel 2. The third request is for a variance. A variance is when there is a request for a discrepancy from something like a zoning regulation, a setback, or a maximum height allowance. In this case, the applicant is requesting an additional 5 feet of height allowance on a portion of the main Anchor Safeway building located in the rear of the site. And finally, the design review request is for development of the entire site. It includes over 81,000 square feet of floor area between all buildings on the properties. And it also includes the physical development of the site, the parking lot circulation and space layout, the landscaping, where the trees are planted, how the site is accessed by vehicles and pedestrians. And of course, architecture of the buildings. The site is vacant as it currently stands. The general plan designation on the site is commercial. The zoning for the site is retail business district. Third bullet point there goes over some of the adjacent uses, which I covered while we were looking at the vicinity map. The project description, this is just the portion of this presentation, and there you see a rendering of the site with the intersection of Laurel and O'Hara down at the bottom of the picture. So this section, I'll briefly go through what is in the staff report, but in summary detail. So this is the parcel map envisioned. The gray bluish area is where a majority of the shopping center is. The large object on the top is the Safeway store, and the pinkish area is the gas station. And that's how the two parcels would be split up on the site. The bottom left would be the intersection of Laurel and O'Hara. The conditional use permit, again, covers 3 drive-through restaurants and services. 2 of those are restaurants. Those are located on the top left and the bottom right highlighted area. Those are drive-through restaurants, quick serve. The users are unknown at this time. And the sliver of yellow next to the Safeway would be a drive-up pharmacy attached to the Safeway store. There is 1 gasoline service station in the bottom left. So that's the location of the conditional use permit and the 4 uses associated with it. The variance is for that exceedance of 5 feet over the maximum 35 feet. And if you can see the tallest section of that Safeway building, that architectural tower in the front exceeds 35 feet by approximately 5 feet. It's about 80 feet wide, I believe, from side to side. And the rest of the building does not come up to the 35 feet. So the rest of the building is between 29 feet and maybe a little over 30 in some places where the parapet wall extends. So this height variance only applies to that architectural element, and that element only exists at the front of the storefront. It does not continue all the way to the back. Design review, this is just details on the design review. These are the elements that are looked at and analyzed when staff receives a design review application. The top sections are the sort of the areas that are looked at: site planning and landscaping plans, proposed architecture, walls and fencing. And the bullet points here provide summaries of all of those elements. Again, 7 buildings. Some of the other details here, there's over 300 parking spaces, including EV charging stations, 19 bike racks and 3 long-term bike lockers. Over 122 new trees will be planted, several of them large 24-inch box trees. Hundreds of shrubs will be planted. Full frontage improvement on Laurel and O'Hara, including curb, gutter, sidewalk, and a connection of the sidewalk to the north on O'Hara. Decorative pavement at the drive entrances and pedestrian paths throughout the parking area inside of the project. The architecture, as you can see in the plans, it's quite modern with straight lines. The parapet roofs are used to screen equipment. The exterior consists of a textured exterior with brick veneer. Some of the buildings have horizontal and or vertical panels of different colors. The storefronts are black metal trim storefronts. And there's a different color and material palette for the Safeway as opposed to the rest of the shopping center, but they use very similar and complementary colors and materials. And then the walls and fencing, there's a decorative 8-foot tall wall that would be along the northern portion of the project and wrap around a portion of the Safeway between Laurel Ballfields and the Safeway. And then for the remainder of that eastern property line would be a decorative metal fence on top of a retaining wall. And there would be retaining walls around a majority of the project, not along the street frontages. There's also solar carports, and this kind of factors into the request for the variance on height. And those are in front of the Safeway store. They cover approximately 120 parking spaces, including 9 American with Disabilities Act spaces, and they have a maximum height of 18 feet. They range from about 14 feet of clearance on the low side to a maximum of 18 feet to the top on the high side. And again, they're located along the rows in front of the Safeway building. This section, I'm just going to go through the renderings that were submitted by the applicant. This is an aerial looking to the northeast. This is a rendering of the entrance driveway that would be off of Laurel Road. So the gas station would kind of be just off the left of the site there, of the picture. These are renderings of some of the interior buildings. I did review this, and I knew which one this was, but I can no longer tell you which one this was. As you can see, I'll go back to this one. As an example of the stamped asphalt and pedestrian paths, you can see sort of an idea of what that would look like where that person is crossing there. And those would be throughout the development. More renderings of the pad buildings. And more renderings of the pad buildings. So you can see some of the buildings use a green body color. It's not on all of them, so it's on a few of them and more predominantly on one of them. And then this one is looking down the frontage of the building adjacent to the Safeway, and then the Safeway in the background there. So this is kind of from the driveway, one of the driveways off of O'Hara. With that, we move on to the environmental review for the project. The project was subject to the California Environmental Quality Act. Rainey Planning and Management conducted an initial study and determined that the project would fall under a mitigated negative declaration. The city posted a notice of intent to adopt the MND with the Contra Costa County Clerk and the State Clearinghouse with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. We also posted the site with that, and we put it on all of the areas around town where we post our agendas and public hearing notices. The initial study, mitigated negative declaration, resulted in mitigation measures in 8 of the 21 impact categories, and those are included in the mitigation monitoring program that is attached as Exhibit A to the proposed resolution. Those are requirements for the project to implement. The other portion of the environmental review is for the Habitat Conservation Plan / Natural Communities Conservation Plan. This project is subject to that plan, of which the city of Oakley is a participant. It requires that a planning survey report be submitted. This report just goes over some of the details of the project site, what type of land cover it has, and then it assumes presence of certain species. Prior to any land disturbance, pre-construction surveys are conducted, and the city collects impact fees associated with this, which are then transferred to the HCP Conservancy, which uses those fees to protect, build, and maintain land, usually outside the urban limit line, for species of concern. This is the staff analysis portion for the tentative parcel map. This is a summary of the findings that you will find summarized in the staff report and written out more clearly in the proposed resolution. And these are the areas where the tentative parcel map is reviewed. So it has been reviewed with the Subdivision Map Act, the general plan, and the city's zoning ordinance or applicable portions of the zoning ordinance. It meets all the required findings in the RB districts standards. The parcel sizes are large enough. Floor area ratios do not exceed the maximum of 1.0, and the lot coverage is not over 40%. The site's physically suitable for the project. It's accessible. It's not physically constrained. And the project is not expected to result in any serious public health problems. For the conditional use permit, conditional use permits are subject to standards of analysis in Oakley Municipal Code. There's also additional requirements for drive-through restaurants, and I want to be clear there, restaurants, so the pharmacy is not subject to those requirements, and gas stations. And those are located in those two sections, 9.1.1236 and 9.1.1240 respectively. And as conditioned, there were a couple of conditions added to the resolution. The 3 drive-throughs and the 1 gas station meet those standards of analysis, not only for CUPs, but also the additional ones in those 2 sections mentioned. And just to disclose those to the commission, so you don't have to go fishing for them, they're conditions number 19 and 20 in the proposed resolution. The drive-through lane shall include decorative screen walls adjacent to O'Hara Avenue and Lowell Road. And prior to issuance of the individual building certificate of occupancies, staff will ensure that all of the performance and operational standards that would apply at that time from those 2 sections have been completed or have been implemented with. And those can include things such as a litter control plan, things of that nature. For the variances are also subject to standards of analysis from the Oakley Municipal Code. They may not constitute a grant of special privilege. Due to some special circumstance, strict application of the zoning standards deprives the property of rights enjoyed by other properties. Any granted variance substantially meets the intent and purpose of the respective land use district. The requested variance does not grant any special privilege, and that other projects or owners of properties may file for a similar type of variance with similar circumstances. Special circumstances exist is that this is a large site, 8.77 acres. There's several trees being planted along the frontage. We have solar carports that are up to 18 feet tall blocking the Safeway store, which should have visibility from Laurel Road. And that requested variance for the building only consists of an approximately 80-foot wide section of the building, and that is small font. I apologize, it looked bigger earlier. And then also the intent of the variance meets the purpose of the retail business district. The intent of the variance is actually very close to something that would, or the actual variance is close to something that would already be allowed in the zoning district, but it wasn't quite there. And that is that the zoning district allows for height exceptions of up to 15 feet above maximum building heights for certain architectural things like chimneys, cupolas, or spires. Because this was an architectural element of the building frontage, storefront, it did not quite meet that definition. However, in the Oakley Design Guidelines, there is additional language that says that anchor stores should be very visible, they should be noticeable, and that it actually recommends that or encourages things like tower elements to be higher and more visible so long as they don't exceed twice the height of the building. In this case, it would not exceed twice the height of the building, and it would consist of a tower element. For the design review, there are standards of review, and we went over those sections, if you remember, on that previous slide and some of the details of each of the submitted plans. The plans meet the design review standards for review with minimal need for additional conditions of approval. These are 2 examples of conditions of approval that were added. The 8-foot tall walls conditioned to be decorative, not consist of a smooth-faced concrete-colored material. In other words, it just shouldn't look like smooth concrete. Detailed exterior lighting designs will be required of building permit plans. And we do have some of those lights called out now, so we'll just be asking for additional spec sheets and details. There we go. So with that said, all required findings are included in the proposed resolution, attachment 5 to the staff report, and they're found on pages 2 through 7. I think the very top of 7 is the last finding. And there's one very small correction to the staff report, and it's just that a part on page 6 reads that the variance is subject to conditional use permit standards. Obviously, that should say variance standards. All the included standards in the staff report are accurate. It's just how it was described there. And then the city did receive public comments on this project in written form. We did receive a letter from Contra Costa Environmental Health. They were kind enough to list out a bunch of items that the businesses they suspect would be occupying the site would be subject to. So that'll be passed on to the applicant and future operators of the center, should it be approved. We received an email from Mr. Joe Sabrante, representing a neighbor north of the Safeway store, requesting split-face CMU or similar materials for the sound wall, requesting lighting along the northern property not spill into adjacent residential properties, requesting restricting delivery semi-truck speeds behind Safeway to minimize noise on neighbors and reduce backup alarm usage after hours. And he wanted for the operators to be considerate of noise created by hours of trash pickup. There was also a public just so the audience is aware, the Planning Commission has copies of these letters and everything, at least these last two. A letter from Mr. Paul Seeger representing Sierra Club, and this was regarding the California Environmental Quality Act. Mr. Seeger had comments related to the air quality and emissions reduction, comments critiquing the mitigated negative declaration, and suggestions for additional mitigation. The city of the city of Oakley had talked to Rainey about this letter. We received it late last night. I received it this morning. And we were able to review the letter to ensure that, we wanted to make sure that any of the accusations in the letter, that none of them would be found to be true. So we were able to review the letter. Rainey was able to analyze that letter, discuss it with staff, and you do have a response to that letter. And what that response finds is that after reviewing the comments in the letter, the city still feels that all of the requirements of CEQA have been met. The notice of intent was posted for the appropriate amount of time, allowing for comments for 20 days. And that there is no additional impacts identified in the letter from Sierra Club or need for additional mitigation measures. In other words, we feel the CEQA that was conducted was conducted correctly, and it satisfies the needs of CEQA. With that said, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt the proposed resolution approving the project as conditioned. And we want to note that adoption of the proposed resolution includes adoption of the project's mitigated negative declaration. That concludes my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here with a team of folks that may be able to help answer questions in different areas. Rod with Rainey is here. We have a noise consultant here and also the traffic consultant here. So we're happy to answer whatever questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strelo, for that very detailed presentation. So at this time, I'll receive questions from the planning commissioners. Any questions?
So I'm going to assume we don't know who the drive-through restaurant who that will be. It's up to the.
This time, the only user that we're aware of is Safeway.
And Safeway, just to clarify, Safeway is owning and operating the gas station?
The best of my knowledge, that is true. That is something I would request the applicant to confirm.
And one comment about the Cheese Rock. Thank you for incorporating that. I've had more comments about the Cheese Rock. I didn't even know what it was, and I had to go out and look at it. But it's going to be our public art, and we've talked about public art a lot, and I'm pretty happy to see that incorporated into the landscaping. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so at this time, I'll open the public hearing and receive comments from the applicant.
I should add, Vice Chair, the applicant had let us know they don't have a presentation, but they are available to answer comments or provide any additional information the Planning Commission may request.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Comments from the applicant? Okay, at this time, I'll receive comments from the public. The only comments that I have are the already acknowledged comments from the Sierra Club, and then also from Mr. Sabranti. And I don't have anything else in front of me. Nothing in the box there. So, any comments submitted online will be put into the record. So, if nothing else, I will close the public hearing and call for deliberation. How do we feel? I think I'll call that. Would any commissioner like to make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented tonight?
So moved.
I will second.
I have a first and a second, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the resolution as presented, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? None. The motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item number 5, regular calendar. There are no items there. Item 6, reports. Reports from staff members.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Just a couple of reports. The Community Development Department, our new chief building official started Friday, June 28th. His name is Conrad Fromm. So we now have chief building official in the building, helping out our building and code enforcement divisions. The planning division is also currently seeking out a senior planner, and that currently is expected to close, I believe, tomorrow at 2 p.m. We're also looking to hire a building inspector 1, which I believe closes in mid-July. Aside from that, just a reminder, the council chambers is functioning as an Oakley cooling station today and tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on the 5th and 6th, the Oakley Library at 1050 Neroli Road, although not an official cooling station, has been recommended by the city to be another place people may be able to go and receive relief from the heat. We have more information on our webpage, ci.oakley.ca.us, and I have no other reports. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That sounds great. Next, we move on to item 6.2, Oakley. Any reports from the planning commissioners or requests for future agenda items?
Yeah, I just wanted to report that I attended the city's event on Saturday. It was great, really well attended, lots of excitement, and I think people were really having a really good time there. So the city staff did a great job putting together a wonderful event, and I appreciate it. And also wanted to let you all know that I will not be able to attend the August meeting.
Thank you.
It's a sudden change, so sorry about that. Sorry for the short notice.
So nothing to report. Just again, thank you, Mr. Ken Strelo and the entire Oakley staff for putting this together. I'm excited to see Safeway finally coming to Oakley. It's been a long time coming. I've lived here my entire life, and this is exciting. So definitely exciting news. I'm glad we were able to move that forward. Next, we move on to work sessions. There are none. So there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.